Hey guys, tonight we gather around a cozy little flickering light and slide under the warmest of blankets to talk about something you probably won't survive without a smile. Because seriously, who would choose to be a medieval assassin? Picture yourself, bleary-eyed, trying desperately to wake up beneath a heaving pile of itchy wool blankets, because there are tasks ahead that need that unique skill set of yours. You work in shadows, lurking behind drafty stone walls. And let's be real, you'll probably spill your morning porridge down that all-black garb before the sun even properly rises. Before you get too comfy, feel free to tap like or subscribe, but only if you're genuinely enjoying the calm around here. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is over there. I love seeing how far this sleepy little journey reaches. Now, go ahead and lower the lights. Maybe let a fan hum in the background, and let's drift gently into tonight's story together. You wake up to the usual sight of uneven beams casting playful shadows across your room, or rather, your very own gloomy lair. Something about the way the light filters in half-heartedly makes you think nature itself is not in a rush. Perhaps it's even still sleeping, kind of like when you set 5 alarms with total disregard because the snooze button was invented just for you. As you roll out of what passes for a bed, your body aches in places you didn't even know existed, which feels all too familiar. Honestly, being an assassin isn't as glamorous as the legends told by folks who, let's be real, couldn't even locate their socks on a good day. The early medieval morning isn't quite alive yet. No one else is around, which to your advantage is the best way to keep your profession a jolly secret. Because, as historians tell us, keeping secrets was a medieval hobby. Actually, a few scrolls here and there might lift the curtain just enough to glimpse the bizarre life led by folks who worked in the business of planned disappearances. Now that I think about it, even the term assassin rolls off the tongue with the clumsy courage reserved for those who've never tackled a 2-page document deciding they've had enough social interaction for a year. In fact, this job often feels more like shadow walking than anything guts gallant. We've got our parchments, the medieval equivalents of today's endless emails, rolling our eyes as we decipher cryptic contracts inscribed by all manners of wispy ink. Trust me, it's a striking scene reminiscent of the time when you nervously gaze at that unopened email from your boss, sitting rather aggressively in bold font. You think to yourself, can't we just solve our differences with a calming meme exchange? Wandering down narrow stone corridors, your footsteps soft against the slightly sticky cobblestone, sticky due to a night's worth of questionable medieval tavern fare. You make your way to the dim meeting area. You can sense the day's mission hovering over your head, like a medieval adventure TikTok that loops over and over again before you can scroll away. One can't help but sigh, because even in the dim light of history, there's something whimsically exhausting about perpetually planning other people's disappearances. It's rather comical how your profession primarily thrives due to internal noble squabbles. Overserved lords who couldn't get hold of the latest rumor in the castle without creating a new sworn enemy. Anyway, you rub your cold hands, still pale from the dawn frost, together as you unfurl yet another mysterious missive, like you're opening your phone again, despite promising yourself you'd stay unplugged. The ink shines under the dim light, whispering secrets only you and this parchment can share. Early medieval assassins like yourself functioned in an era lush with myth. Take a moment to chuckle about the epic fails. Supposedly, Some assassins dressed not in practical gear, but in cloaky flamboyance that screamed, "Look at me, nothing suspicious here." Which is probably why, honestly, historians still argue whether flamboyance was part of a psychological tactic or just medieval arrogance being, well, medieval. But really, who wouldn't find it a little funny, imagine setting up grand escape routes without a GPS or smartphone, relying solely on the intricacies of mental cartography, while all your hostages have the innate talent of dramatic fainting. And no offense to cartographers of yore, but medieval maps can sometimes feel like watching someone sketch a pirate treasure path after one too many grogs. There's an air of surreal tuple around you as you consider the day's events. Accountability in this timeline needlessly extends beyond stealth. You're navigating allegiances and clandestine inns while planning how your coin purse might stretch towards a nice hearty meal. Because a lurking, sneaky assassin above all stays very much alive on clandestine tavern, bread no fancier than butter and yeast. And so, your day begins not with a call to arms, but with a gentle tug into the enveloping cloak of historical obscurity, where your skills, peculiar or not, find unexpected validation within secretive alleyways and forgotten scrolls. Remember, adventure awaits just beyond the next skip of a pebble down old cobblestone streets. The sun, you swear, is playing tricks on you as it peeks through the crumbled walls of your hideout. But that's life when you're a medieval assassin on a mission that feels partly like stepping into a rabbit hole and partly like getting lost in a never-ending series of side quests. Seriously, you'd think these scrolls of duties were handwritten by someone who discovered procrastination before emails were a thing. As you fashion a slightly askew hood over your head, it's more for drama than disguise, honestly. You stride into the bustling streets. Your assignment today sounds like the latest installment of a saga everyone's too polite to ask for more information on. It's high stakes, mysterious, possibly drenched in paranoia. But mostly, it's your bread and butter, which is ironically always stale. You chuckle to yourself, thinking, wouldn't sliced bread be nice? Ah well, one day. In the medieval mix of life, undertaking the task of pursuing someone who seems to walk on hurried whispers and linger between candlelight flickers is daunting. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some believe these targets didn't just evade capture, but were more phantom than fact, like your aunt's mysterious fruitcake recipe that's never the same twice. Honestly, who are you even stalking? The boy who cried wolf? As you weave through this tapestry of villagers, tending stalls, selling odd vegetable concoctions, a kind no one really craves, you feel the familiar press of eyes subtly sizing you up against shadows that don't quite fit. Historians still argue whether the famed elusive target, as detailed in questionable documents, was real or simply a cloak and dagger fable woven to keep the townsfolk spinning like tiny, frenetic cogs in a wheel of uncertainty. The learned minds debate this as if it were the mystery of a neighbor who returns to her garden each night, wondering who's trimming her hedges into amusing topiary animals. So here's the humorous part. Finding someone in medieval times was akin to playing hide-and-seek on expert difficulty with a party where everyone forgets they're still playing. You'd hunch dramatically near archways and listen for snippets of gossip while comparing the thrill to binge-watching dramatic soap operas where the plot twist is who has been secretly disguising as whom for years. It's all more bard song than archaic practice, yet here you are, trotting on well-trodden cobblestones for significant clues. or perhaps just for the sensation of gravity grounding your whims. The streets you frequent could tell all sorts of tales if they only had the wit. Dark cloaks and ink pots filled with concoctions that rival today's DIY science projects were often involved. A chuckle escapes as you remember the farcical night when someone mistook their potion for a drinkable elixir, which ended in someone snoring beneath a table rather extravagantly. As you pass through dusty markets with cryptic glances at every strangely familiar face, you're reminded of the chaotic energy of bumping into someone at the supermarket whom you'd rather pretend you didn't see, except when you realize you're both headed for the same lone checkout lane. Yep, cloak all you want. Some missteps are universal. The scent of baking wafts entices your stomach, rumbling louder than internal monologues in old journal entries. But there's no time to linger. You're here with a purpose. Find and track today's impossibly worthy adversary, or at least make it look convincingly busy. Just imagine telling this tale on TikTok with the hashtag medieval problems. With day transitioning to night, crowds thin, and you continue your pursuit, edgy but confident. The pending moonlight shadows paint their own cryptic map across the worn stones, and your heart beats to the rhythm of secrets whispered among nocturnal songbirds. Bathed in the glow of the night, walking becomes more about listening to your own wits than to simply treadle forward. Funny how, in this grand story, certainty is the rarest commodity, and you've become almost addicted to those endless mysteries and elusive goals. Each footfall clicks softly against time, each wisp of the average day etched against the ever-curious night sky, where your pursuit feels more dreamlike than daring. As the day yawns toward evening, welcoming the soothing embrace of twilight, you prepare for yet another mission. Because in this tangled web of hush-hush deeds and half-told truths, the journey's the adventure, and you're perfectly content being the wandering seeker on candlelit quests, hungry for another scroll, another whisper, another unsolved query, as misty as the dawn. As night wraps itself around you, you find yourself slipping into the enigmatic embrace of hidden guilds, the kind of group so secretive, even the members sometimes forget who's in charge. Imagine wandering into a meeting where everyone gives each other knowing looks, yet no one actually knows why they're there. That's pretty much the vibe. In the dim, flickering light of torches, you see familiar faces. Well, as familiar as faces can be when half cloaked in shadow and identity is a fluid concept. As you settle onto a creaky bench, you remind yourself of that one time you joined a Zoom call and spent the entire meeting trying to figure out who else forgot to unmute. Yeah, you belong here too. Tonight's session, which should be a straightforward gathering of like minds, unravels into discussions with so many tangents it turns into a medieval choose-your-own-adventure book. Every member, with their own brand of cunning, pitches ideas most would consider convoluted. Plans ballooned with the kind of enthusiasm reserved for group projects where no one did the reading. There's something inherently entertaining, though, about listening to debates over whether stealth or wit should rule the art of assassination, much like arguing the merits of pineapple on pizza. Passionate, humorous, yet ultimately inconclusive. Amidst the chatter, someone mentions a real historical tidbit. In medieval times, guilds often served as secret support systems for those whose trades were, let's say, less than respectable. They were like the medieval LinkedIn, but instead of endorsements for strategic planning, you got kudos for silent footfalls. Oh, the nostalgia for a time when your skills could secure you not just work, but anonymity. A precious commodity when every alley breathes secrets. Here's a quirky angle. Occasionally, initiation rites would include absurd tasks, like fetching mythical substances, not unlike trying to hold a party without duct tape. Just imagine trying to procure dragon scales when, spoiler alert, dragons are purely metaphorical. By the 8th dragon hunter's confession of a fruitless quest, everyone acknowledges the unspoken truth. Most of these challenges are just for giggles, or better yet, groans. Historians still argue whether these guilds genuinely influenced medieval politics, or if they simply murmured powerful fables into the ears of the nobles, while enjoying the perks of ambiguity. Could an ensemble of skilled shadow walkers really impact the whims of kings? Or is it just another tale spun to fill gaps in records created by fires? Or, more likely, misplaced medieval filing systems? It's in these secretive corners of the world where you'd expect drama to unfold, like in the juiciest of reality shows. Yet more often than not, what's betrayed by glances and smirks is the humor at the heart of sometimes befuddled decisions. Pacts are agreed upon, plans mumbled over ale, and some members continuing to gesture animatedly even after contributing, as if mentally preparing for their next task. Behind masks and solemn nods, you know the truth. Sometimes, these gatherings exist less for action and more for camaraderie over shared absurdity. When the meeting adjourns, you step back into the chilled air that hugs you like a scruffy blanket just out of the dryer. Each breath visible in the crisp air feels as tangible as the lingering scent of earth and stone mingling around you. You nod to your fellow guildmates, the unspoken bond where everyone's schedules align like the fridge light illuminating unexpected leftovers at midnight. Strolling back through the quiet streets, cobblestones pressing memories into your souls with each stride, you think about how this obscure network of riddles and whispers keeps you grounded even amidst confusion. Here, in the delicate webbing of clandestine lives, you almost forget the implausibility of your own, tucked neatly among chipped bricks and whistling corridors that weave stories of laughter, delight, and hidden shadows behind your every step. Your world, as interconnected as the paths on a much-fingered parchment map, winds toward a solitude you've learned to find comfort in. A place where each secret bends towards the echo of forgotten legends. A soft melody of mystery woven within the night's hushed murmur. In the murkiness of night, there's something almost theatrical about the dramatic unveiling of your chosen instruments of the trade. Enter the world of medieval weaponry, where practicality sometimes took a backseat to what, let's face it, looked like an experimental art project on a string of "who thought this was a good idea?" Let's just say, if Instagram had been around, medieval influencers would have had a field day tagging the epic fail. You stand in your dimly lit corner of the workshop, surrounded by an eclectic array of tools and weapons that look about as ergonomic as a metal porcupine. Each piece seems designed to test whether you can wield it without taking out your own knees. The sheer impracticality is hilarious. It's the medieval version of decorative swords, touted by the elusive uncle at every holiday gathering. There's a real historical fact for you. Fashioning weapons back then was a craft as much as an art form, with blacksmiths crafting blades that sometimes ended up less like instruments of war and more like gaudy possessions you'd reluctantly accept from a well-meaning but creatively misguided craftsman. Some weapons are iconic. Take the longsword, a staple in any respectable warrior's toolkit. But then, there are the less famous implements, tools wielded in such specialized scenarios. They sound like something conjured from the fevered dream of a medieval artist experimenting with interpretive sculpture. A quirky tidbit: the flail, notorious for its chain and ball design, could easily have made you look more like an angry farmer shoeing livestock than a precise warrior. One can only chuckle, imagining knights looking at this particular device and asking themselves if they accidentally walked into a medieval dance class instead of a weaponry tutorial. With tools in hand, you face the conundrum of wielding something that not only needs mastering, but convincing onlookers that it's a plausible choice. Historians still argue whether some of these more curious weapons were ever meant for serious use, or simply products of overzealous creativity. You have to wonder if some medieval arms designers were chuckling under their breath, creating devices that thrived as more conversation starters than combat efficiency boosters. You want me to use this while doing what? Echoes as an eternal question beneath starlit skies. Okay, so here's where it gets especially wild. The popular image of the silent, stealthy assassin often involves bows and crossbows, light as whispers. But in reality, close combat essentials were bulky, sometimes more of a hindrance than anything else. Imagine trying to sneak around with chainmail clinking like a medieval one-man band. You'd be attracting more attention than deterring it. Oh, to be a fly on the wooden wall at the guild meeting, discussing the trials of silent takedowns, while wielding an axe large enough to be your jealous rival. After a bit of impromptu balancing, and the dexterity test that is choosing a weapon for the night's mission, you're ready. You stow the chosen piece carefully, like half-wrapped gifts meant to tickle your instincts more than calm your nerves. There's comfort in familiarity, even when that means being bare inches away from whistling blades. As moonlight seeps through the tall windows, okay, let's be honest, more like large gaps in the wall, the faint glow sketches outlines within the space. Weapons gleam under this gentle light, their metal surfaces reflecting their long history in your bloodline of shadows and silence. The gentle clatter echoes as if sighs into your hands, where calm fingers weave fond edges known to you like old friends. You step outside, and the cool night air greets you like that reassuring voice in your head, nudging you toward those last-minute brave decisions, much like pouring cereal before checking for milk. The quiet of the night shudders almost imperceptibly as your silhouette skims past corners and shadows, each step of anticipation fueled by a mixture of magic, history, and just a hint of absurd melodrama. Onward, you think, as the roads unfurl like ancient riddles beneath a cryptic light, guiding legacies forward while evening pulls at the clouds, carrying tales of laughter, mystery, and all the whimsical remnants of another adventurer's dream. As you meander through the moonlit streets, you can't help but think about the art of medieval messaging, the kind you never asked for, but end up deciphering like a cryptic text from a friend who just discovered emojis. Back then, sending a message wasn't as simple as typing out an LOL without actually laughing. Nope. The medieval world demanded a level of effort that made you question if the message was even worth it in the first place. You find yourself stepping into a dimly lit alcove, one of those shadowy nooks that seems perfect for exchanging secrets. There's a crumpled parchment waiting for you, tied with a piece of fraying cord and sealed with wax, a kind of medieval inbox, minus the notifications that make your pocket vibrate like an existential crisis in 4G. Unsealing the note is an art of its own, more fragile than trying to keep those 27 browser tabs open without crashing. This message, of course, is written in code because simple words are too straightforward for the age of anarchy and artistry. The cipher looks like something a bored monk casually doodled, albeit with meaning layered like a casserole you might have scooped out from your fridge during midnight snack raids. Honestly, if emojis existed back then, whole battles could have been prevented, or perhaps started, by the use of a questionable eggplant symbol. Here's a historical tidbit for you. Cryptography was indeed a big deal in medieval times. Monks and scholars delighted in codes and ciphers to obscure messages from prying eyes, to the extent that entire scrolls are undecipherable today. The thrill of secrecy crushed between layers of velvety ink became a pastime for the determined, a puzzle that wove riddles into a dance of intellect. A quirky side note: some messages were even crafted with invisible ink, often lemon juice, revealed only when heat is applied, a trick you might have tried yourself in an elementary science class while hoping you didn't scorch that precious hidden message meant for your best friend. Such inventiveness, spliced into the heart of historical communication, casts a wondrous shadow. Historians still argue whether advanced coded messages in medieval diplomacy were as common as some tales suggest, or whether they were rarities, the stuff of legends clouded by time and embellished by imagination. The question remains as intimately elusive as the intentions of those who penned them. Did they truly weave these codes into the everyday fabric of decision-making? Or was this a storytelling flourish to keep eager listeners on their toes? Amusingly, not every connected communication ended in innovation. Oh no, many found themselves lost in translation, the medieval equivalent of the whoops, wrong chat fiasco. Mercenary commanders recount more than a few misadventures where deciphering misunderstandings resulted in comical conflicts, highly amusing in retrospect, but likely puzzling when swords were drawn over incorrect bread delivery. With a sigh that sounds comfortably resigned on the cool night breeze, you roll up the parchment, tucking it safely into a pocket. Armed with possibly one of the oldest traditions, the relay of information cloaked in mystery, you wander back into the flickering lamplight that paints shadows longer than true. As the night slips softly, you ponder the intricacies of these bygone means as you stroll past walls that sag under their own centuries of whispered secrets. Each encoded message, a reminder of a time when life brewed more complexity than choreographed footwork concealed beneath veils of identity. Here in this maze of alleys and whispered histories, you're both the puzzle and the solver, treading ancient paths marked by silent agreements and secrets exchanged when only stars are watching. And so, you carry on into the thick of night, wrapped snugly in your cloak of shadows, one step after another, past the realm of waking into the softer cadence of dreams waiting to envelop your thoughts. As you continue down those quiet paths, the night grips you like an old friend, whispering tales of yore. You find yourself in the company of flickering loyalties, eavesdropping on a scene reminiscent of a tense family dinner where everyone is just one awkward comment away from spilling the tea. Underneath the canopied stars, within the storied halls of the medieval court, the air is thick with intrigue. It's the kind of drama that makes soap operas seem tame by comparison. The setting is hardly different from any modern open office floor plan. People clustered in tight groups, whispering about others who are conveniently absent. Seriously, it's like an episode of reality TV, where half the contestants are playing for the throne, and the other half are just trying not to trip on their trailing robes. You lean against a wall, the stone cool against your back, sipping on the chatter like it's a strong, old-timey brew. Here's the historical fact to tickle your fancy. Medieval courts were indeed the place where alliances were forged and broken with the kind of swiftness that would put the most volatile stock market to shame. Monarchs and nobles jockeyed for favor and position, fluttering from one allegiance to the next like social butterflies with a secret. When you think about it, some of them would fit right in with today's political climate, just with fancier feathered hats and considerably more theatrical gestures. Amusingly, side conversations would often involve more rumors and speculation than a gossip column. If medieval Twitter existed, oh boy, their trending topics would have included epic tales of betrayal, clandestine whispers, and courtly love scandalously misfiled in the "I thought this was secret" box. The quirky tidbit involves the court jester, that historically significant figure who wasn't just there for laughs. Sometimes, jesters had the cunning of crafty diplomats, their wit sharp enough to slice through any tension with clever wordplay. Picture this: a mirthful master of ceremonies who, while jesting with the noble entourage, whispered hints of scandal between giggles. Like a meme that says everything you're too nervous to express out loud, with an added dash of vulnerability, because nothing says, "How's your safety net?" Quite like wearing Technicolor patchwork. Historians still argue whether these court jesters wielded real influence over decisions or simply served as colorful distractions to keep tempers in check. Were they trusted advisors hiding vibrant wisdom beneath painted facades? Or was their act a merry prank sustaining them under the court's benevolent tolerance? The debate continues. Maybe there's some truth slipping through the cracks in the historical facade. Against this backdrop of muted laughter and not-so-secret stratagems, you can't help but notice the irony of it all. Half the people in the room are eyeing each other like suspects in a medieval whodunit. And in that classic over-the-shoulder glance moment, an uneasy truce maintains order. The kind of uneasy quiet you'd encounter during a group presentation where no one did the pre-reading. Eventually, after a dangerous round of baton-passing allegiances and silent nods, things settle. Much like the calm after a dinner party where everyone decides to shelve personal grievances for another time, the crowd disperses slightly more united than before, albeit temporarily. For tonight, tensions recede, though the echoes of whispered schemes linger over the corridors, like the shadow of stories etched into the stone. As the court beats gently to the rhythm of politics, your role as spectator draws to a reluctant close, and you slip back outside, where the world awaits your next move. You find an odd calm in the anticipated uncertainty of it all, stepping quietly, head filled with the tumultuous yet oddly comforting cadence of history weaving its intricate, sometimes puzzling tale. With moonlight guiding your path, you retreat to your realm of secrets as dawn begins its first tentative caress of the city silhouette. Here, quiet and determination foil along the echoing symphony of midnight trade, where your hidden narrative dances into the usual rhythm, marking time in the night's stillness. As you make your way through the gently waking city, the air filled with that peculiar pre-dawn hush, you chuckle at the thought of disguised disasters, those hilariously ineffective attempts at blending into the medieval tapestry. It's like trying to hide a watermelon at a hat party. Color clashing and full of whimsy, but ultimately quite noticeable. In your line of work, wearing a disguise is almost a daily requirement, yet it often feels like choosing a Halloween costume, debating between practicality and sheer absurdity. Nights of secretly observing hidden courtyards reinforce the comedy of slipping into characters, like donning an overlarge cloak. There's always a chance the person you're meant to become turns out to be a bit overly conspicuous, much like sending a pigeon message with an "oops, wrong address" note tied to its leg. Ah, the endless hassle of medieval masquerades, where real historical accounts tell of spies and scouts using disguises ranging from holy men to blind beggars. Imagine the range. Instead of shuffling through a limited selection from the medieval equivalent of Spirit Halloween, your chances of pulling off an impersonation depended on how convincingly oblivious you could act. An open question that lingers is whether these eccentric costumes were more effective storytelling than strategy, an existential dilemma as baffling as it is captivating. Quirkiness highlights the sheer absurdity of some archival accounts. One infamous escapade involves a group of low-level spies impersonating flute players, albeit lacking any discernible musical talent. Their deception may have lasted, but for the fact their music sounded like a chorus of goats being diplomatically herded through a festival. You find yourself snickering at the mental image of them maintaining that charade simply because no one wanted to appear uncouth by pointing out the cacophony. In these imperfect guises, absurdity serves as an unexpected ally. After all, who notices a disheveled beggar alongside opulently robed nobles engaging in highly conspicuous cloak and dagger exchanges? It turns out, not many. It's a universal truth, as relatable now as it was then. Sometimes, the more you stand out, the less people actually notice you. Talk about reverse psychology in its most classical form. Before one such night's escapade, you devise a plan to cloak yourself in the humble guise of the medieval barmaid, a character who drifts through rooms with silent efficiency, often overhearing secrets spilled with the ease of a broken tap. Yet even in this undercover role, the disguises rarely mask the individuality beaming through. A quick smile, perhaps a tardy gesture, mastered only through practice. While adjusting your attire, you think back to that time you joined your friend's fancy dress party dressed as your own modern disguise, complete with sunglasses indoors to stay in character. There's just something inherently amusing about wearing a costume to fit in, simultaneously standing out like a meme-worthy moment waiting to happen. As the gray morning slowly brings color to the cobblestone alleys, you prepare to enter another courtly intrigue. Your heart pounds with anticipation, and excitement laces your movements as you quietly sculpt your guise. Meanwhile, the world goes about its waking rituals, carrying the timeless chaos of a new day, familiar yet freshly spontaneous. The echoes of the unpredictable, disguised in far too transparent robes, lead you with gentle resilience. As you move into position within the bustling pathways of medieval life, a secret resolve stirs steadily within your heart, a singular note in this cacophony of costumed existence layered with competing rhythms. And so, you step forward into the waking world's fold, part player, part audience, another dancer, slipping soundlessly into history's embrace. There, in the ethereal space between shadow and light, your laughter quietly breathes against the tapestry of life, reminding us all of the minor and grand performances that sustain us on the journey from dusk till dawn. The sun has finally slipped above the horizon like a curious cat stretching into the day, and you find yourself swept into the anticipation of the great heist. A task so audacious, it rivals those online challenges that seem deceptively simple until you actually try them. The kind of mission that promises enough adrenaline to keep you both awake and guessing your life choices. In medieval times, pulling off a heist often required stealth comparable to sneaking past a sleeping dragon. We're talking about creative imagination igniting at full throttle. It wasn't just a solo performance. Oh no, it demanded the synchronized chaos of a well-rehearsed ensemble. Picture it like Ocean's 11, but with fewer tech gadgets and more reliance on whispered oaths and crossed fingers. A real historical fact for you. Theft was, unsurprisingly, a serious offense, but medieval thieves were creative masterminds. From urban dens housing craftspeople to noble halls cluttered with untold riches, nothing was safe from their grasp if they had the will and an excellent locksmith. It's both amusing and astonishing the lengths one might go to, bypassing weighted portcullises and labyrinthine corridors, all while avoiding being caught mightily red-handed with yesterday's pudding. The quirky tidbit, though, many regions often hired these same thieves, essentially turning poachers into gamekeepers, or in modern terms, hackers recruited for cybersecurity. Not only did it recycle talent, but it was a crash course in understanding potential vulnerabilities, served with a side of irony as thick as a medieval custard. But honestly, historians still argue whether some thieves were ever caught at all, or if their disappearances into the folds of anonymity camouflaged them more effectively than their disguises ever could. Were they truly ghosts of their crimes, or did they reappear under the noses of guards, sly smiles hidden beneath deliberate hoods? Your target this time is a renowned artifact, shielded beneath layers of anticipation and more metaphorical "do not enter" signs than you can count waving on parchment. To everyone else, it's just another relic tucked away during renovations. But to you, it's golden allure, dancing on whispers of past conspiracies. The plan unfolds like a woven tapestry, each thread contributing to the complete picture. Your team accomplishes their roles with silent expertise, players on a stage where acts unfold with thrilling precision. It's one of those scenarios where, despite its importance, everyone fits their piece as nonchalantly as grabbing the last pastry during a chaotic brunch gathering. You slip into the guarded chamber with the practiced grace of a cat burglar, an art honed over countless twilight rendezvous. Shadows swirl as your senses sharpen, breath steady, heart pumping like a background track to an emotionally intense showdown. Torrents of anticipation clash in a symphony of soundless suspense, as if the dusty old shelves and silent halls hold their breath in solidarity. Yet there's still humor nestled within these heart-pounding moments, an internal chuckle at the fact that your opposition remains blissfully ignorant. They aren't contemplating the elusive artistry of heists. Maybe they're too busy counting wooden chair legs or lamenting last night's mead. While technological times change, some things never do. The obliviousness of the very people tasked with protecting their sacred, entrusted treasures. There, the artifact finally surrenders to your patient cunning. Weighty with its ancient mysteries, it fits snug into your carefully padded pouch, a medieval equivalent of a heist's loot bag, albeit without flashy jewels to rattle in your wake. You slip back into the folds of history's obscurity, arms heavy, yet spirit lighter than feathers caught on an updraft. The heist concludes, not with fanfare, but a flourish of understated satisfaction, an unwritten agreement between you and the ancient corridors that bore witness. The cloak of night enfolds you once more as you steal into the streets, refreshed by the narrative unfolding like half-remembered dreams splashed upon medieval skies. As you mingle with alley cats and soft laughter from distant taverns, you store away the chronicles of a day unfurled, grounding the heart within the stories buried beneath antique stars. Your path narrows within the waking symphony, your soul anchored quietly, while the pulse of the world breathes freshly refreshed, like someone who finally got a full night of sleep. In the gentle lull between night and dawn, you find yourself consulting with soothsayers and schemers, a cast of characters who might not be whipping up potions, but are certainly brewing mischief. Picture, if you will, an assembly that feels not unlike stepping into a medieval soap opera, where fortunes are foretold with the gravity of an Oscar-worthy nomination speech. You enter a dim, smoky chamber, where the air is thick with incense and mystery, wafting lazily like the thoughts of someone trying to remember if they left the oven on. Around you, gathered in a haphazard circle, sit the artisans of fate, all eager to share or sell their visions with more fanfare than a travel influencer hyping up the best hidden gem that isn't hidden at all. A mainstream historical fact to illuminate your path. Medieval Europe took its soothsayers seriously. They were believed to hold keys to the mysteries of life, future, and destiny, often consulted before battles and marriages, or really any event that might end disastrously with no forewarning. It was a world alive with omens and dreams, each whisper feeding the narrative like breadcrumbs, leading to impossible futures. Here's a quirk for your amusement. Some soothsayers employed tricks worthy of a medieval rave. Smoke, mirrors, and well-timed thunder served as dramatic props to herald their predictions, like nature itself was in on the act. There's something charismatically entertaining in imagining Mother Nature playing sound and lighting tech for the day's cosmic performance. Historians still argue whether some of these future tellers were shrewd observers of human behavior and political landscapes, talents that undoubtedly translated cryptic insights into strategic advantages, or if they merely haunted the corridors of superstition, weaving tales as sticky and delightful as medieval honey. You sit cross-legged among the folds of hanging tapestries, trying not to sneeze from the intoxicating spices mingling in the air. Your assigned sage begins outlining your future with dramatic flair that promises plot twists intense enough to feature chases through castles and long-lost treasures rediscovered. You quietly nod, wondering if they're also subscribed to the notion of calling your Spotify deep cuts discoveries of untold brilliance. Here's the wild part. Soothsayers often leaned into the notion of twisting reality, and before you know it, you're being encouraged to dodge metaphorical arrows of destiny, like someone who just dived too deep into a rabbit hole of conspiracy theories. Between abstract predictions, your attention wanders to another corner of the room, where a fellow prophetic enthusiast is laughing heartily. They've just received a note suggesting, with utmost gravitas, that their neighbor's ox will nudge them toward fortune. It seems medieval fortunes also include advice best suited for sitcom plots, wrapped in humor that transcends time. Despite these escapades, you can't help but reflect on the connections these soothsayers weave with their storytellers' art. Compelling narratives binding strangers with hopes, mysteries, and enough humor to serve as society's quietly nodding conscience amidst the tumult. With every prophecy offered, Your attention segues between disbelief and a fond understanding that here, amidst these vibrant predictions, history breathes spectacularly. The narrative accidentally embracing each of you with dialogues as echoing and oddly comforting as your inner monologue debating midnight snack antics. Stepping out once again into cool morning air, you carry their words lightly. They flutter like the ribbons on a festival dress, full of possibility as the first sun rays kiss the cobbled streets. In this dance between reality and vibrant imagination, you find solace. Your journey emerges from the shadows into a veritable tapestry of kaleidoscopic tales, offering whimsical reflections. Among these, your own story gleams, unwritten yet achingly familiar, and wholly inviting to tomorrow's unfolding. As the ethereal glow of the new day stretches across the city, your next adventure takes you on nighttime navigations. Those twilight wanderings so quintessential to your craft, where the very air seems to hum with untold secrets. It's a bit like wandering through a nocturnal theme park, but instead of roller coasters, you navigate starlit paths and the unexpected twists of medieval sociability. The streets around you are slowly stirring from slumber, as if wrapped in a soft yawn. Cobblestones echo underfoot like the comforting sound of a sleeping dog's rhythmic breathing. There's a cozy familiarity in returning to the narrow, labyrinthine avenues of this centuries-old town. Each twist and turn as unpredictable as endlessly scrolling through an app on 2% battery, hoping for that one last revelation before it flickers out. You embark on a search, driven less by destination and more by curiosity. Because let's face it, half the joy of exploration lies in the unforeseen encounters along the way. Historical fact, these medieval towns were especially lively at night, bustling with all the intrigue one might expect from a nondescript tavern in a fantasy novel. Every tavern you pass is a microcosm of tales. Its patrons shuffle under low, gleaming lights, exchanging stories with the kind of enthusiasm you get from a lively group chat, rapidly filling with memes and in-jokes. A little chaotic, but utterly captivating. The trick is to listen in, grasping snippets of plans and rumors, weaving them into a narrative that only you can decipher. A detective in a world where information is both currency and community. Funny enough, you catch the edges of an argument about poultry prices morphing into a loud debate over whose story about fishing mishaps trumps the rest. Loud laughter soon follows, an anthem of camaraderie punctuated by the clinking of make-do tankards, echoing with the spirit of 1001 sitcom mishaps. Interestingly, historians still argue whether nocturnal gatherings like these were essential community events or merely time fillers in the absence of Netflix-style entertainment. It's a golden argument that speaks volumes about the inherent need for human interaction as deeply rooted in history as stone-paved roads. As you wander further, the mist from nearby waterways casts an ephemeral glow over the wooden beams that peek from stone walls, creating dancing shadows that resemble a kaleidoscope of whispered stories reflecting off a polished surface. You stride through foggy pathways like a modern traveler with untied shoelaces, admiring the wispy tendrils that encircle memories sewn into the ground. Through open windows, you hear the flurf of beds being made and the distinct clatter of someone restocking a pantry hidden from sight. There's a beauty in simplicity that echoes all around, a melody of life that's as enduring in its quietude as it is in its boisterousness. Passing an old storyteller mid-performance, you pause, sampling verses of their tales. It's a tale that steadily expands with each verse, an epic promising wisdom more ancient than time itself, though the specifics often get tangled up in metaphors grander than any real event. You wrap yourself within its delightful glow, listening until every word sounds like the comforting hug of a favorite blanket on a chilly night. Finally, you find your bearings within this passive melee, pausing momentarily beneath an arch that frames the last gasp of starlit sky. Here, you reflect on not only where you are, but how these small adventures fill your days with radiant potential. Shadows inch closer as dawn creeps, gentle kisses catching you, a reminder of narratives not yet fully written. Awash in contentment, you return home. Every step across the cobblestones, a reassurance that sleep is merely a prelude to more wanderings, woven seamlessly into the timeless quilt that warms the heart of the eternal night traveler. As dawn nudges the world into wakefulness, you find yourself dwelling on the echoes of conflict, those whispers of past tensions embedded in the stone and stories of the medieval landscape. It's like flipping through old photo albums, each blink captured mid-chaos, yet all softened by the patina of time. You step onto the path where sunlight mingles with lingering shadows, marking a delicate truce. There's an historical fact for you. Medieval Europe was rife with conflicts. Kingdoms rose and fell like waves, driven as much by ambition as by the stubborn reluctance to leave disputes unspoken. It was a time when alliances were crafted and dismantled with more fervor than today's pop culture feuds. But, with less tweeting. As you tread through the streets that once bore witness to the clashing of noble houses, it's hard not to imagine the scenes of siege and subterfuge unfolding here, under skies that have since forgotten their furies. Yet beneath those skies, the ground tells tales of battles in muted tones, like listening to an ancient podcast where the recording quality is just a little grainy, but the story's so compelling you don't even mind. You can't help but chuckle at the thought of all these factions trying to solve their issues with swords and catapults, a little like trying to sort a group text disagreement by launching increasingly large emojis at each other. Despite the grandiosity of such actions, there's a simplicity in their determination to stake everything on their cause, a kind of single-minded dedication that socks you right in the nostalgia, reminding you of simpler times when decisions were made with an unwavering heart. Among these storied stones, there lies a quirky facet. Certain towns were known for bizarre peace treaties, where terms involved items as unexpected as barrels of eels or roles in comical local plays, ensuring cooperation, or at least appeasement. Historians still argue whether such treaties were genuine efforts for lasting peace or simply eccentric marks of medieval creativity desperately trying to avoid more practical negotiations. You wander past murals and worn carvings, frozen in time, capturing the fluctuating fortunes of kings and the laughter of court jesters, keepers of morale. It's intriguing to think these artists might never have known the weight their creations would carry into the future. Kind of like when you post something silly, not knowing that, in a century or so, someone might look up your last clever quip for philosophical insight. You stop, breathing life into this tapestry of quiet endurance. Courtyards, once ringing with the clatter of trains and tournament fanfare, now bask in tranquility, your footsteps the only echo of earlier entanglements. It's the poetic respite post-clash, a soft murmur beneath the afternoon sun that knits peace into its golden weave. Flashbacks of medieval intrigue lightly lift the curtain. A clandestine meeting beneath the solemn, ever-watchful gargoyles on a noble tower, or a shared glance exchanged amidst tournaments as subtle as brushstrokes within an ancient oil painting. If these walls had tongues, one wonders what truly happened behind the veils of medieval diplomacy, and whether love stories tangled in Warner hearts. In this quiet interlude, historians still mull over the intricacies of divided alliances and changing loyalties, with questions lingering about whether these patterns echo into today or fade quietly, only to spring anew when least expected. That gentle conundrum captivates you as stories whisper through your thoughts like the winding wreaths of ancient rivers. Timeless, unsettling, and altogether irresistible. As your footsteps carry you forward, a quiet peace inhabits each breath. You step lightly, each stride a note within history's unending song that cradles the past, weaving it back into the world's heart, a reminder of conflicts transcended by those who dared dream beyond their times. And so, you find yourself returning, shadow footsteps beckoning as the tapestry waits for new tales. Fresh echoes now neatly echoed within the chambers of your wandering heart. The day stretches on, drawing you into the swirl of an assassin exchange, a time when your skills merge with creativity in a medieval art of negotiation that feels less action movie and more like a convoluted board game where all the pieces are constantly being swapped out. It's akin to trying to trade a rare Pokemon card for something that might just be a sticker, or perhaps nothing more than the promise of an IOU. Within secret corners, the meeting reveals itself under low-lit chandeliers, a mix of flickering candles and the glow of anticipation. It's the medieval equivalent of a swap meet, with an undercurrent of unspoken competition masked by overly polite greetings. You sidle into the gathering, where the air is charged with the calculated tension of rivals sizing each other up, masked behind cordial smiles that could rival even the best social media profiles for their practiced perfection. Here's the deal. Historical records tell us that medieval assassins, spies, and freelancers often bartered skills much like arts and crafts at a quaint market fair, only with less jute and more drama. Whether offering services or trading seasonally gathered intel, the art of the deal required a balance of poise and precision, like an expertly brewed cup of coffee, or, in medieval terms, a well-guarded recipe for mead. A quirky tale that circulates among your peers involves a notorious swap between two cloaked rivals, one offering a relic map for a series of well-placed whispers. The map, however, was revealed to be a childlike doodle of absolutely nothing. The lesson resounds: always read the fine print, even when it's scrawled in hieroglyphics that belong on Grandma's fridge. Historians still argue whether some of these exchanges birthed revolutions or were just window dressings glossing over unsolved rivalries. Either way, they ripple through history as delightful anecdotes that suggest sometimes even rogue operators deal with the same misgivings as a neighborhood club. In the thick of negotiation, one can't help but notice a row of well-polished artifacts discreetly displayed upon a grand tapestry, a shop window for hired deception, if you will. And yet, here between segments of veiled glances and half-hidden grins, something sweetly humorous exists, where rival potential mingles with human connection, the kind that laughs at its own intricacies and occasionally veers off into sincere repartee. In these brief exchanges, levity bubbles up, a shared wink about the weather more ominous than the worst escapade's collected scroll. It's like the universal tradition of complaining with coworkers about the state of the office coffee machine, rich in semi-unspoken fraternity. Whether your machine dispenses caffeine or rekindles intrigue. And so, the scene concludes not with the harsh tonality one might expect of a business deal, but with softer intertwining threads. Your task complete, you slide back into daylight, thoughts alight with the potential of new stories born from these, sometimes grudgingly, convivial meetings. As you wander away, you graciously let the hum of crowd chatter and rolling hills frame your thoughts, a backdrop against which today's exchanges sit lightly, weighing neither more nor less than the accounts of kindred souls sharing not only wares, but warm glances and knowing laughter. The ease of that camaraderie gently unwinds in your steps as the path unrolls, leading you onward. This medieval dance of transactions leaves you feeling centered within a tale that hums and rustles, yet promises more dawn-touched connections, crafting new patterns within the age-old fabric of clandestine lives. As dusk drapes its soft shadows across the landscape, you ease into the realm of suspicion and superstition, a proverbial haunted house of medieval imagination, where murmurings grow louder and whispers take on lives of their own. It's the exact moment when you realize that not every shadow hides a lurking enemy, but convincing others, that's the real trick. Everywhere you wander, you catch snippets of conversation wrapped around tales of witches, forests where the trees whisper names, and rivers that run backward under the full moon. This is a time well before skepticism and fact-checking were in vogue, and you can't help but smirk, picturing medieval peasants forwarding these tales like a chain letter in your inbox, promising doom if you didn't send it to your nearest 10 confidants. The villagers look at you askance, a cloaked figure strolling casually among them, much like the uncomfortable blend of recognition and revulsion you'd feel if you came face to face with one of your anonymous online followers at the grocery store. They murmur amongst themselves, a jigsaw of fragmented rumors that cling to the air thicker than the morning mist. Historically, superstition was rampant, linking events to omens as seamlessly as streaming media onto your phone when Wi-Fi cooperates. It governed with curious soft authority, prescribing solutions ranging from horsehair amulets braided under full moons to clipping a bit of sheep's wool for luck. The hilarity of it all? It'd be like trying to ward off bad vibes today by wearing every single bracelet in your digital mood collection. A curious tidbit to amuse you. Some folks truly believed wearing one's clothes inside out by accident could repel evil spirits, while today it might invoke smirks and fashion confusion. Back then, it was a ready defense against any mystery that one couldn't quite explain. You can picture it, hardly the height of sartorial elegance, yet hugely comforting against intangible fears. Historians still argue whether the hold of superstition ever lightened the heavier trials of a difficult life, or simply spun tales thicker into their daily loom. Did it serve as a cushion against the harsher truths, or merely weave further tangles in an already befuddled tapestry? Like scrolling through countless self-help threads, finding solace both in solid advice and charmingly dubious fixes. You pause to observe the lively exchange at the town's edge, where a market bustles not with goods, but with intentions laid bare, a reunion of tradition and incredulity. Each interaction is like buying an artisanal jar of vague promises, shrouded in anticipation and the inherent belief that someone knows precisely what lies around the next stone-tumbled corner. Among these wagons of wares, atmosphere wafting like warm bread from an oven. The assembled characters jostle for attention, a veritable gallery marking its mark upon the world, with superstitions flagged as warning signs more intense than any bright neon glow. In this whirl, your own presence feels deliciously unnoticed, overshadowed by the might of tales wielded with elaborate conviction. And yet, amidst the chuckles, suspicion roots itself universally, proving once more that humanity is intimately linked with imagination, a timeless dance astride whimsy and reality, navigating the spaces where fact morphs subtly into legend. Gentle shadows fall upon your heart. It beats steadily within, each echo warmed by the comforting light of hearth and friendly fires. Step by step, you wander from the winding, flickering lanes, thoughts laden with the hum of bygone lives, imbued now with stories less of fear and more of shared humanity softening the sky's darkening embrace. And so, your journey continues, where suspicions linger like the sweet scent of nostalgia, inviting not only reflection, but further discovery reluctant to end. A serenade sung quietly into the veil of night's crescent arc. As the night deepens and the stars take their positions as ancient sentinels, you find yourself heading back to your hideout, a place that feels like home, wrapped in the mystery of shadows you've come to know so intimately. There's a kind of quiet satisfaction in returning home, akin to crawling back into bed after a long day and finding the covers perfectly cool and inviting. Walking through the dim alleyways, you carry the soft glow of city lanterns at your back, painting gentle halos around cobblestones and forging a path that's as familiar as the lines of your own palms. It's in these moments you ponder the winding turns of the day, each breath steady, welcoming the unraveling of the enigmas you've encountered. Your mind drifts to ponder this eternal place of yours, a sanctuary hidden from prying eyes, but open to the endless musings of your heart. Within these four walls, your existence persists, a sacred space where unwritten words and half-spoken conversations create a symphony of identity. It's like when you stare at your phone, notifications lighting up the screen, yet choosing the satisfyingly rebellious act of ignoring them. A settled scroll or two waits near the hearth, as the firelight dances along the edges, like old friends reuniting after a season's journey apart. Historians often describe how medieval sanctuaries provided refuge beyond the storms of tumultuous lives, maintaining an air of reverence not unlike someone with earbuds in, avoiding the world's hustle in favor of soft melodies whispering only to them. Within the quiet embrace of your sanctuary, you welcome reflection like a warm beverage cradled in soothing shadows. The flicker of light casts playful shapes against time-worn walls, a callback to flickering fairy lights strung around modern rooms, each bulb like a small spell binding the here and now warmly in place. Familiar scents of the hearth mix with dream-laden shadows, creating a heady mixture that feels as age-old as ashes and whispers. Your thoughts alight on the day's encounters, the stolen whispers, allegiances flickering like candle flame, the whims of superstition that danced as gracefully as falling leaves upon the winds of change. Much like organizing thoughts after a binge-watch session of heartfelt series, the weave of narratives beckons you gently into contemplation. Perhaps tomorrow will unfurl a fresh tapestry, one that beckons the world's curiosity and ancient rhythms forward. Perhaps new faces will greet you under arches worn smooth by the passage of time, each step again cradling the tales that keep weaving ever onward. And in those thoughts lies a reassuring melody, promising the comfort of reprised melodies under starlit skies. As the night's quiet enfolds you, soft and serene like a whispered meadow, you ease into the rustling softness of slumber, knowing tomorrow covers yet another page in history's expansive tome. Your presence, woven seamlessly, rests within this eternal narrative now cradling every moment past, a gentle promise, anchoring sleep's embrace with potent contentment. With the cricket's lullaby, echoed gently by the distant sighs of evening, you surrender to sleep's patient call. Dreams drift like playful currents, carrying the tenderness of your day into realms cradled within endless stars, an enveloping calm where ancient stories breathe anew, resonating subtly in memory's tranquil symphony. As the gentle embrace of morning light strings its warmth through the edges of your shutters, you awaken with a sense of returning to a world that never quite left your dreams. There's an undeniable charm in the slow unfurling of a new day when you're cozied within the soft folds of medieval musings. Stretching beneath your well-worn blanket, you listen to the hum of the world outside, soft yet persistent, like the buzz of an old refrigerator that stands as a silent guardian of forgotten snacks. You can almost see the motes of dust dancing lazily in the sunbeams as they weave a tapestry across your modest quarters, rising with the cautious enthusiasm of someone facing their first morning coffee. You realize there are new mysteries to unravel and stories yet to be whispered along the winding alleys of your adventures. Outside, the streets awaken one sleepy villager at a time. Tentative footsteps mix with the gruff clearing of throats, the nostalgic timbre of everyday morning sounds echoing centuries into the past. You meander through the marketplace, where stalls still tentatively perch, laden with fresh offerings from nearby pastures and distant lands. It's no different from cautiously tackling your email inbox, messages sitting like unopened parcels from who knows where, awaiting your attention whenever you're ready to dive in. Amidst the well-wrapped cheeses and robustly scented herbs, you're drawn to a haphazard stall piled with relics dusty from time's passage. These items promise subtle stories, each with histories untold or partially forgotten. With care, you sift through them, much like scrolling social timelines, part curiosity, part convenience, and a splash of delightful anticipation. An amusing chit-chat among shoppers draws your attention. A dispute over the authenticity of a trinket meant to ward off ill omens. You muse at the toughness inherent in such debates, not unlike arguing the merits of sports teams based solely on hearsay and repetitive anecdotes. Were they truly imbued with protection, or did their power lie solely in belief shared like bread among kindred spirits? Historical records reveal that belief in talismans was as common as the sunrise. They were nestled beneath cloaks or sewn into garments, keenly guarded secrets believed to hold sway over paths uncertain. A quirky truth to amuse you. One notable knight famously carried a potato beetle, believed to portend luck, rendering historians forever bemused by medieval creativity. There's heartfelt joy in realizing some traditions may just never align with logic. Historians still argue whether such objects held real power, or if they merely served as reminders of the human capacity to seek comfort in the unknown. Were these artifacts anchors in tempestuous seas, or simply storied curios that spun tales like yarns woven into fireside knits of lore? The answer teases balance within the sanctuary of discovery, a reminder that history carries its secrets like a favored knapsack through ages. In the morning's gentle light, your path twists through the bustle with dreams whispering sweeter than the morning air. A song to be savored in the moments you let slip by. As you weave through the gentle din, the day yawns open, inviting you into its embrace, coaxing from within a soft sigh. And thus, you dance toward your next encounter, well steeped in the ethereal weave of whispers and warmth. Your own story, unfurling with every step, beneath this golden dome, beneath horizons shimmering with unnoticed possibilities. The journey meanders on, a never-ending patchwork of moments, colored bright, swirling gently beneath an eternal sky.